Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Chuggu Podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Pearse McLaughlin. Hello, Pearse.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. On today's podcast, we will be reacting to Manchester City winning the Champions League, discussing the latest news on Celtic's managerial search, previewing this weekend's Scotland match, and at the end of the podcast, Pearse will be giving a rundown of all the latest Asian football news. So coming up next, we'll be reacting to Manchester City winning the Champions League. So on Saturday, 10th of June, Manchester City defeated Inter Milan 1-0 to win their first ever Champions League trophy. This also means that Manchester City have won their first ever continental treble, and they are the only second English team to ever achieve this. The other team was Manchester United back in 1999. So Pearse, what's your reaction to Manchester City winning the Champions League?
Heartbreak, to be honest, because I think like most football fans wanted Inter Milan to stop the powerhouse that is Manchester City, because they seem to just defeat any side that just comes before them. And I thought, for the way that Man City have been revelled in recent years and recent times about their fast flowing attacking football, I think you're now seeing a side. And a side to Guardiola that he hasn't really shown before. A side that he's quite willing to put a defensive side out in terms of to make sure he doesn't get caught out at the back. But it's virtually just like five defenders and then five attackers. And the five attackers can just roam around in any position and just pick pockets of spaces. And because obviously you've seen that with John Stones getting in midfield alongside Rodri. And he's learnt from his mistakes in the final against Chelsea a couple of years ago when he failed to play any holding midfielder. But I thought it's a fantastic achievement to win the treble. Like you said, only second side to do it in England, but the first British side to do it was obviously Celtic back in 1967. So it's not exactly as if it's an easy achievement to do. Congratulations, Guardiola. Fantastic achievement. But I felt as if Inter Milan gave them a really good go, and they should be should be applauded for their effort. And they caused them a good few problems, Manchester City, because they didn't have it their own way. Like people think before kickoff 3-4, and also Gareth Bale said 5-0. So yeah, no, I thought it was a very good game. And well done, Manchester City.
Yep. Just comment on the match first of all. I mean, I agree. You said Inter Milan. I thought they played really well. A lot of people, including myself, thought that Manchester City could run away with this final, but I thought Inter Milan played. Their game plan was really good. You know, defensively, I thought they were brilliant. You know, they surprised me with the fact that they pressed really high up the pitch, trying to win the ball back. You know, they're really aggressive. You know, thought Erling Haaland was kept reasonably quiet the full match. So I thought Inter Milan played really well, but on the day, I just think Manchester City had just done enough because I just felt Manchester City had more chances than Inter Milan. Although Inter Milan played well, I just didn't think they created enough. Well, apart from they had a couple of goal chances towards the end of the match with especially with Lukaku. I mean, I think Ederson's going to go down as an all-time legend with that save he made. I don't know if he knew much about it, but I just think Manchester City on the day had just done enough to go and win the Champions League. But yeah, what an achievement for them, winning the treble. It was always there ever since Manchester City were taken over back in 2008. It was always their main goal to win the Champions League. It was always Pep Guardiola's legacy at Man City. Can he win the Champions League? And he's done it. And that leads me on to my next question. Obviously, now they have done it. Is this one of the best football sides you've ever seen?
One of the best sides of recent times, but I probably wouldn't say it's my best side that I've seen. 'Cause I've seen obviously you have to go back to the you go to the Bayern Munich side in 2013. I thought they were outstanding. Robin Ribery won the Champions League. I think they won the domestic treble in their own country in Germany. You did the Real Madrid side of the three Champions Leagues in a row, and then you arguably one of the greatest sides, footballing sides in recent times was Guardiola's Barcelona from 2008 to 2011. Like how many ex-professionals say that was the most difficult side to play against? Because you had a young Lionel Messi, but you had the Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, and you had Toure, all these world-class stars, Eto'o, Henry, and then you pull at the back. So they're up there. I wouldn't say they're the best, but the fact is they're now in that table, and obviously, like you said, they've joined Manchester United and the second English side to do the treble. So that isn't their only honour now. Man United, like they were in that table alone, but Man City are now cementing their side as themselves as a serious top side. And obviously, the fact is to be even in the same question or even the same breath as some of these legendary sides is something but a positive. But I think the one hindrance I would say is probably the way they've done it in terms of the financial, because a lot of these sides that, like we mentioned, they didn't have the financial superpower that Man City have in the current climate. So that's probably one thing that you'd probably go against them. But in terms of the way they play and the way they just win games, it's exciting to watch, and no, they're a fantastic side.
Yep. I don't think they're my all-time favourite side. My all-time favourite team that I've seen, or not favourite, or best team I've ever seen, is that Barcelona team back in 2012 especially. You know, they were the first team that really set my eyes on that kind of style of football that's played. You know, I always remember the final at Wembley against Manchester United. You know, that was the game that really, you know, kind of cemented my kind of thought of this is the best team I've ever seen. And I think what was special about that team for me was the fact that a lot of the players came through the academy. Obviously, Messi, their midfield, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Puyol, players like that. You know, a lot of the players had come through the academy, which has made it more special. But with this Manchester City team, it does come a close second for me because when I watch them and when I see their team, they just look so complete. Like there's not any. I struggle to see a position where I'm thinking that they need to improve. You know, defensively they're rock solid. I mean, they hardly concede any goals anymore. I think that was always quite an issue with Man City. Although they played really nice football, that they did concede, quite a few goals. But they just seem now that they're just complete. You know, they've got strength in every position. You know, they've got the best striker in the world in Erling Haaland, in my opinion. And yeah, they just seem to have everything going for them in that side. But it's the way they play as well. It's like I think on the eye when people watch it, it does. You know, it's exciting, but it's not. You know, end-to-end football. You know, they really. You know, sometimes when they keep the ball, it does seem it can get a bit repetitive because they do the same thing over and over and over in terms of like the pass and the movement. But they just know how to control games, um, I don't think for me the best football team I've ever seen, but they definitely are a close second. So again, I just want to. So obviously, we're just talking about the best football side we've ever seen. So I just want to ask you about Pep Guardiola. You know, that's another treble he's won. He won one with Barcelona. He's now won with Manchester City. I think you know what question I'm going to ask you. Is Pep Guardiola one of the best coaches of all time?
So again, somewhat to Man City's up there, but for me, he's not. Um, what he's won at different clubs and different leagues, he's conquered where he's been, but he has been at all the top sides in each country, so that'd probably go against him as well. And like I said, probably the greatest for me is probably Jock Stein and Sir Alex. They two are probably the greatest because obviously the fact they won European honours with Scottish sides, which is probably one of the most hardest things to do. And they've done it with, like you say, similar to what you said with Barcelona, most academy players. And obviously Celtic was all academy players. I'm pretty sure Aberdeen was similar as well. So to do that and obviously Aberdeen beat Road in the European final, then Sir Alex then went on to do it with Manchester United on two separate occasions. And in '99 he'd done it with the class in '92, so that was mostly academy players and a few players here and there bought. But the nucleus of the team was, like you say, all from Carrington. And the Barcelona side was like La Masia, but you look at Man City, like there's probably one academy player, and it's probably Phil Foden or Rico Lewis. It's like two players. Like it's not really a great look on English football because like most of your, if that's the best team in England, and there's like hardly English players in it. It's just a sad indictment of the game. But in terms of the greatest, he's up there. He's definitely up there because of what he's won in different countries. But I would probably put they two ahead, and obviously you kind of deny the talents as well as Don Carlo Ancelotti. Won it as a player of the Champions League. He's won it with AC Milan a few times, with Real Madrid twice. Won the Premier League with Chelsea as well, and done one. I think he won an Italian Cup at Napoli as well. So I'd probably say he's my top five. He's definitely my top five. I wouldn't say he's my top one.
Yep. I mean, it's hard to kind of think about these questions because I think in terms of coaches, you can go different routes. So I'd say with Alex Ferguson, I'd say his man management was the best of all time in terms of how he handles players. But I just think with Guardiola, like he is one of the best managers of all time. But I think he's the best manager of all time in terms of his legacy, in terms of his style of play. You know, I think people will look back on him as to the fact that how he's changed football in terms of how teams set up now with inverted fullbacks wanting to play it from the back. You see coaches now around Europe and around the world all trying to implement. They all follow Pep Guardiola and how he wants to play. So he's definitely left a legacy there, I think, in terms of style of football. Because he was probably the first coach I've seen that, implemented this style of football. I think he copied it from Johan Cruyff, but we weren't alive back then. But I just think in terms of style of football, I think he will go down as the best of all time because I think lots of managers now look to him as look to his legacy and look to his way of playing, and they want to copy that. I don't know if he'll ever win the most trophies. I think he's still got a bit to go in terms of Premier League titles. But I do think in terms of style of football, I think he will go down as the best of all time.
Just touching on Tom, you mentioned Johan Cruyff. I would say probably he's arguably probably one of the greatest managers of all time as well. Just forgot about him. But the fact is, you forget he's the one that started La Masia, and he's the one that probably brought Guardiola into the Barcelona team. And he's obviously learned from Cruyff because even you look at there's young interviews back when it was like he was at Ajax, and there's a young Erik ten Hag asking him questions. So these top level managers have learned from Johan Cruyff. He's the one that started this tiki taka because it ultimately started at Ajax back in the 70s when they were all conquering sides. Like you say, Ajax was probably one of the top level clubs back in the day where they used to win just because the way they played, the style of football. And obviously he then brought it to Barcelona. And Barcelona now synonymous with that style of football. And you see the way Guardiola has kind of revolutionised it in the modern era. And you probably say that probably Xavi at Barcelona now is probably going to learn from Guardiola and he's going to try implement his style. But I see he probably did. So Guardiola, the highest compliment I can pay him is probably the modern day Johan Cruyff. And he's just a legend of the game that will live forever in everybody's hearts for how he played football and how he conducted himself.
Yeah, just my last point there, like about the best coaches of all time, is that I think whenever you leave management, I think if you've left a legacy, I think that just kind of says it all. Sir Alex Ferguson left a legacy. Everybody knows about the hair dryer treatment. I think the biggest legacy, although Manchester United played some amazing football, same with Aberdeen with the success they had, but I think the best legacy Sir Alex Ferguson left was how to manage people. I think he was so good at getting the best out of every single player. He was so good at keeping everyone happy and, you know, getting 100% out of every player. And obviously the youth academy as well. But I think Pep Guardiola is different in terms of he leaves a legacy of his style of football. I think at the end, I think when he eventually leaves football management, I think people will talk back to Pep Guardiola, go, oh, that everyone copies the Pep Guardiola way. Yeah, I know it started from Johan Cruyff, but obviously it's a different generation now, and the fact that coaches are looking to implement Pep Guardiola's style, I think he deserves a massive applause for the way he's impacted football. So it's definitely an interesting debate. So coming up next, we will be discussing the latest on Celtic's managerial search. So the big news coming out of Celtic's search for a new manager is that Brendan Rodgers is a favourite to take over. It has been reported that Celtic chiefs have flown out to Spain to talk to Rodgers about becoming a new manager. So Pearse, what is your reaction to this news? And would you be happy to see Brendan Rodgers becoming the new manager and also coming back to manage in the SPFL?
Well, I think the candidates that have been mentioned, and obviously there's a short list that's been whittled down into three, and it was pretty sure it was the Bodo Glimt manager, and I think it was Daniel Farke and Brendan Rodgers, and all of the three, you probably would go Brendan Rodgers because of how successful he was in his previous stint at Celtic and how successful he was in his early years at Leicester, winning the FA Cup, getting him to fifth place in the league. And obviously at Celtic he won a few trebles and started the beginning of the quadruple treble. But he left mid-season and it left a sour taste in the fans' mouths. But I'm pretty sure if he comes back now, I'm pretty sure they'll be more than happy that he's back in Scottish football. And like you say, a name of that stature back in the Scottish game can only benefit the league. And obviously the fact is that now he has it's an exciting job for him as well, because the fact is he just basically nearly relegated Leicester and now he's getting a crack at the Champions League with Celtic. And we've seen before Ange Postecoglou left Celtic that we've promised like a decent sized chunk of money to spend in this summer window. And with the nucleus of the squad being as strong as it is, you'd expect it would be enough to entice someone like Brendan Rodgers to have a second chance at managing Celtic. And like you say, like if he leaves, another legacy. But in terms of if he leaves on probably his own terms, on like you say, Ange done, he left in the summer after the season's done, then I'm pretty sure fans would forgive him. But I think the fact is that he's coming back, that shows it won't be a long-term appointment, it's just a stopgap, because I don't think any manager that manages successfully in Scotland nowadays will stay in Scotland long because of the lure of the English Premier League. We've seen that with obviously Ange, Postecoglou, Brendan Rodgers and Steven Gerrard. So if you start doing well and winning trophies, it puts your name back on the market of the top sides in England, and that's what it might be doing. It's most likely it is doing that again, but if it brings Celtic success in the near future, and you see the side that Michael Beale's building, so it's going to be an interesting season, and hopefully it should be announced this weekend.
Yep. I mean, I think it's quite obvious now that Brendan Rodgers is the favourite. I think Celtic the Celtic board have come to the conclusion that it's Brendan Rodgers as a top target. Um, uh, I think it's quite interesting. It's quite funny because at the time he left, for Celtic fans, everyone was so disappointed and quite angry the way he left. And now 4 years on, it does seem to be that the majority of fans would be happy to take him back. I don't think this time Ben Rodgers, he's admitted publicly that he is a Celtic fan. He's a grown-up Celtic fan. So I think if you are a fan of a club you want to manage, you would just jump back into it because of your feelings. But I think this time for Rodgers, I think he has to he, he has to take his time with it, because I think towards the end of his Celtic managerial career, it did get a bit, you know, it, relationships with Rodgers and the board kind of were a bit low, in terms of like players missing out, in terms of missing out on signing targets and not a lot of money to spend. Um, so I think this time for Rodgers, if he is going to come back, I think he'll have to, he'll need some priority, like promises and priorities in terms of spending money. And as you did say, you know, this time Celtic are in a much better position. Champions League football, money to spend. They just come off a successful season. So I don't know if Rodgers. I'm still not sure if Rodgers is going to take the job. I think a lot of it at the moment is still just speculation, but it does seem to be that he is the favourite at the moment. I was just going to ask you there about the Celtic fans. Do you think they will be happy to see Rodgers come back?
I think it would be split, but the way to get all fans on side is just by winning football matches, and that's just the simple answer. So I think most fans would be happy with him because how successful he was before, but that Rangers side was a different animal. The challenges were different because and obviously Rodgers is a had Champions League experience with Celtic, although it wasn't fantastic, like his record wasn't great. Um, but this is a time for him to learn, and obviously it'd be interesting to see if he'll try to continue on from the way Ange Postecoglou had his side, or just add a few players, or will he try just change the whole system to suit his style of football, because it is slightly different, but obviously it is attacking football. So it'd be interesting to see. But no, I think the fans would be more than happy if he did come back.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this. I think fans would be happy to see him come back, but the 100% of fans won't be happy. He did leave a sour taste in a lot of Celtic fans' mouth in terms of how he left. But I was thinking, but for Brendan Rodgers, this opportunity for him to come back to Celtic, I don't think he would have thought it'd be this sooner if it'd be this quick if it did happen. This could be a chance for him to right some wrongs, because I think he knows that the timing of last time he left wasn't good at all. But the opportunity to come back, right some wrongs, you know, put smiles back on the faces, and let the Celtic fans kind of appreciate him more again. That could be a motivation for him to come back. But it'll be an interesting few days. Let's just say, I think in terms of the Celtic managerial search, I think by the end of the week we'll know for certain what's happened, if it is Rodgers that's the Celtic manager, or if it's someone else. But no doubt we'll be talking about it next week in terms of more concrete news as to what's going to happen. So coming up next, we will be previewing Scotland's upcoming match. So on Saturday, the 17th of June, Scotland will be playing Norway in Oslo. This will be the third match of the Euro qualifying campaign, and Scotland currently sit at the top of the table with 6 points, and Norway currently sit with 1 point. So, Pearse, what's your thoughts about Scotland's upcoming Euro match?
A tough test, but I don't think Scotland could be in better form for it. Top of the group, 6 points for 2 games, absolutely solid at the back and looking like a really potent attacking side. And the way Steve Clarke's got Scotland playing, even the players that are on the bench or the players that are in reserves, they all slot in perfectly to the system that he plays. But also, I don't think you can have a tougher task playing Norway with the likes of Odegaard, Erling Haaland, to name a few. So, and also they'll had a poor start to the campaign, so we're looking to bounce back a win in front of the home support. But Scotland have had big away results before, so it can be done. I think this is a tougher one of the two ties of this international break, and I think if Scotland can come out this game unscathed, then I think the whole Scotland and Steve Clarke will be relatively happy.
Yeah. That's a big game for Scotland. Away from home. That as you said, they're in a great position at the moment. 2 wins from two. So they come into this game with a lot of confidence. They've been away to Spain this week for training. So the squad have been together for the last kind of week or so. So they'll definitely go into this one with confidence. As you said, the teams, the organizations, it's really good in that Scotland team right now. Um, you know, Players have had really good seasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how the game goes. Um, because the biggest threat Scotland have to deal with is Erling Haaland. He's just come off he'll be coming if he plays that is he'll be coming at this game, on a major high. So how do Scotland go about stopping Haaland?
I think they might have to take a leaf out of a few teams' books from the last couple of games. Obviously, he had Inter Milan managed to nullify his threat, and Real Madrid did that as well in the Champions League. Um, and he wasn't really that existent in the game against Manchester United in the FA Cup final as well. So big games, he's not really turned up recently, but all season he has bagged goals for fun. He's going for many goals out just now, because he's got everything in his locker. He's got pace, he's got power, he's got strength, he's good in the air, he's good with both feet. But I think most teams have now kind of sussed that you have to kind of sit deep. You don't allow him any sort of space because he will punish you. That's how good he is. So I think teams that he's played recently have been sitting deep, dropping that bit further back, not giving him like 3, 5, 10 yards to run into space if he just hits the ball past or you've got people pinging the ball in behind. So that's probably one way to nullify his threat. And another is just hoping that he's still hung over for winning the table at Manchester City. Just Scotland fans just praying. That's and so I'd probably say that's probably one of the big things that he'll probably be partying with Jack Grealish.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was thinking that. I think Scotland defenders will be just slightly hoping that he's still a little bit hungover from the week he's just had in terms of all the celebrating. Um, I think with Erling Haaland, I think the best way to stop him is if you stop the supply of passes going into him. I think he relies on a lot of players giving him the ball and he'll go and finish. Um, so Norway. I mean, we're talking Erling Haaland, but Norway have a lot of other players like Martin Odegaard, for example, who's just come off an absolutely brilliant season. So I think if Scotland stop the supply to Erling Haaland in terms of stopping the midfield, I think they've got a really good chance. But they also have to double up on Erling Haaland, I think, and deny him any kind of space possible because he's in front of the goal. He's unstoppable. I mean, he'll have a chance and he'll finish it. So I think the Scotland defenders they'll be excited about it. I think it's the biggest challenge in football at the moment. Well, one of the biggest challenges in football coming up against Erling Haaland. So it's an exciting one to go into. And, you know, another thing as well is that Scotland are going into this game not as much pressure as Norway. You know, Norway haven't won yet in the campaign. Scotland have won both matches. So although it is a big match for both teams, I'd say Norway have most pressure because if they have any chance, if they want to get to the Euros, you know, I think this is a bit of a must win game for them. Whereas Scotland, I mean, I'd say it's a must win, but not as big as a must win for Norway. So they go into the game, I think, with less pressure than Norway. So no, it'll be interesting. It'll be a really interesting game, and I'm looking forward to watching it. So, just finally, Pearse, what's your final result?
I'm gonna go 1-0. I think Scotland will score. Scotland are just playing with such confidence at the moment. But I just think Erling Haaland will end his goal drought, but I think one will be enough. And I think Scotland will nullify. But it only takes them half a chance to score. And like you said, you touched on the main creator. Like you have De Bruyne at Man City, but also has Martin Odegaard at Norway. And like you said, he had an absolutely phenomenal season at Arsenal, so he'll be confident as well. But no, I do think, like you said, you touched on it, it's a must-win for Norway. The pressure's all on them. They're on the home soil. Whereas Scotland is just a must-not-lose. Just keep maintaining the unbeaten start, and then build on it. And is it Georgia next? Yeah, so I think Georgia at Hampden. You look to take 3 points there. The pressure would then be on Scotland to make sure you get the 3 points there, and that puts you on, was that 10 points after 4 games? I'm pretty sure you bite your hand off on that at the start of any campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking the same. I've got a feeling it'll end 1-1, a draw. You know, I think Scotland are more than capable of going there and getting a point. Um, you know, they're capable of scoring goals. Defensively, you know, Scotland used to be a team where they would concede lots and lots of goals, and once they conceded one, you know, they concede 2 or 3 a few minutes later, but they're not like that anymore. They've got a real good steel about them. They know how to manage games. So I just think with the form Scotland are in, you know, I think a draw. I've always thought about a draw, and I think if Scotland came out of that with a draw, I think they'd be delighted. I think they take it right now. You know, going away to Norway with a draw, I think in the position they're in right now, I think they'd be really happy with that. So yeah, we're both going a 1-1 draw. So for the final part of the show, Pearse will now give his Asian football roundup.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the Japanese league that played on Saturday, the 10th of June, with Yokohama F Marinos 4, Kawashiro Reysol 3, Cereals Osaka 2, Vissel Kobe 1, Sagan Tusu 1, Hokkaido Consadole Sapporo 1. On Sunday, the 11th of June, we had Albrecht Niigata 1, Kyoto Sanga 3, Nagoya Grampus 2, Avispa Fukuoka 1, Gambo Osaka 3, FC Tokyo 1, Kashi Antlers 1, Shonan Bellmare 0, Yokohama FC 0, Urare Diamonds 0, Kawasaki Frontale 1, Sanfrecce Hiroshima 0. And it's seen that Yokohama F Marinos have now clawed their way back to the top of the league. So Yokohama F Marinos, who were at one point sitting 4th in the league, have now back to the summit after a sloppy start to the season. And Kevin Muscat's side is now on back of the summit after winning the league last season. Nagoya Grampus in second on 35 points, and Vissel Kobe have now dropped down to third. Having led the table for so long, it's now at the halfway stage in the Japanese league. And down at the bottom of the table, we have Kawashiro Reysol on 12 points and 18th, Shonan Bellmare on 17th and 12 points, and Yokohama FC on 13 points and 16th position. So it's very tight at the bottom and at the top of the table, and it just shows you Kawashiro Reysol, foot of the table. They were so close to nicking a point against Yokohama F Marinos, who won the game in the 97th minute. So it just shows you how exciting this league is, because any side can beat anyone. Moving on to the Korean League, the K-League 1. So on Saturday, 10th of June, we had Daegu FC 3, Suwon FC 1, Ulsan Hyundai 5, Jeju United 1, Daejeon Hana Citizen 1, Gwangju FC 1. I've done a match report on that game. That's up on the Football Chuggu website. On Sunday, 11th of June, Gangwon FC 1, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors 2, FC Seoul 1, Pohang Steelers 1, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings 0, Incheon United 0. So that leaves it at the top of the table. Ulsan Hyundai, the top of the table after 18 matches played, 44 points. Second position is Pohang Steelers in 31, and in third position you've got FC Seoul in 29. So Ulsan Hyundai having a phenomenal season, and it looks as if they're well on course to retaining their title. 13 points clear at this stage of the season is pretty much a certainty they'll go on and win the title again. And down at the foot of the table, it's Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. Foot of the table, 12th position, 9 points after 18 matches, and you've got Gangwon FC on 12 points in 11th, and then Suwon FC in 10th position on 18 points. The league action recommences on the 24th of June for both J-League and K-League 1 after the international break. An opening game in the K-League 1 is Suwon Samsung Blue Wings against FC Seoul, which is a 4:30 kickoff. And then the J-League, you've got Haikoro Consadole Sapporo versus Cerezo Osaka, and that's a 2 p.m. kickoff. And some Korean news as well. The K-League All-Star team will play a friendly against Atletico Madrid on the 27th of July at Seoul World Cup Stadium. So some exciting news that international stars like Antoine Griezmann will be coming to Seoul for an exciting summer of pre-season friendly. All your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pearse. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu Podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.